And we are back with the Prometheus Season of the Elder preseason cast assessment, a CNC podcast. And today, my co host is the season one alumni turned production member, Mr. Andrew Denson. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm really excited to talk about a few of the newbies for season 2 of Prometheus. I'm hoping that they can live up to what we were able to bring out last season. And yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I told you before that, we separated everyone in alphabetical order, just chunks of four. And I mean, you actually got a really good group of people who you will be talking about today. But let's just kind of jump right into it with our first person. We have Jocelyn. Jocelyn, I'll go over a couple small details, and I'm going to actually really give it to you to tell me your thoughts on her. But Jocelyn, 40 years old, so she's a little bit on the older side, but obviously not old by any stretch of the imaginations. She's a mother, she's a grandmother from outside of the Philadelphia area. She's a clinical data programmer for some sort of pharmaceutical company. And she also is, kind of very spiritual. She does tarot readings and stuff like that too. But a little known fact to some people, and honestly, it's actually been a little while since I've done the interview, so I'm not sure if you even know this, but by marriage, she is actually Mara's cousin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Did,
she is
did you
Mara's
know
cousin.
that going into the interview?
I did. So she actually, it popped up at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. She tagged the Prometheus page in a Facebook status. And I was like, who is this? Why is this person tagging Prometheus? And she like made a comment about how she's just starting to watch Survivor and she's hoping that maybe this will give her the insight to potentially be a good player because she's never played an org before. And I messaged her immediately. I was like, you don't have to watch Survivor, especially I ended up finding out later she watches RuPaul and Big Brother. I mean, like, we're just another reality competition at the end of the day. So like you should definitely apply. And she didn't at first, but then about a week later she submitted her application. But yeah, so yeah, tell me your thoughts on Jocelyn.
Okay, so first of all, going back to and this is a absolute compliment. When I first saw the thumbnail for the video, I'm like, oh, okay, younger woman, 25, 26. And then within the first like 20 seconds, it's like, I'm Jocelyn, I'm 40 years old. I'm like, you said what now? And I have to rewind it because I just have to make sure. And she starts talking about her family, her very large family, and what she does, in her, both jobs, I guess, which are two totally different things. But I think that they show how I guess broad her outlook on life is, if that makes sense. Her being a newbie to the org community and to orgs in general, I think could absolutely help her because we had someone like that we had a couple people like that on our cast. But I'm specifically talking about Anna, who, everyone saw as a big threat, even though she had never done anything like that before. So I definitely feel like she could find herself in a situation where that potentially happens. I really enjoyed her vibe. It was, I don't know. I'll say this about all four people. During the can I talk about the interviews?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There's a part of the interview where Casey asks everyone, are they passive or aggressive? Are they a leader or a follower? And are they, what's the third one?
Leader, follow, logical or emotional.
Logical and emotional. And every single person I had locked, like I knew exactly what they were going to say. But I was still surprised when certain people said their answers anyway, just because, oh, okay. But yeah, I really enjoyed her interview. I'm excited to see if, as a newbie, she's able to, potentially fly under the radar for a beginning because people are going to want to protect her. Like, hey, this is what happens in this situation, this, that, and the other. Because then at the merge, she becomes the social threat because now everyone likes her. and we can see how far that takes her. Yeah, that's all I got on her.
Yeah, I'll conclude this by saying I really like Jocelyn's vibe. Yeah, I agree with the two different sides to her, professional, job, career, whatever you want to say. The spiritual side, I feel like can very much be like a emotional or actually even like a gut feeling. And then you have that clinical data programming, which kind of comes on the more logical side of things. So I mean, I could see a lot of things. I mean, she is young enough. She's got young kids. She's got grandchildren. She's got a little bit of a nerdy side. She's been giving me the play-by-play as she's going through Survivor, which is really cool to hear, some of her thoughts. I think, and I won't go too far into this with any individual person, but I think she has the chops to make it at least to day 2. From there, we got to see what other players we'll be dealing with in day 2. But I think she's going to probably at least make it to day 2, and I hope she makes it very far. And I wish the best for all of the contestants. So
but specifically her, no.
So next up, we have Josh. Josh is 28 years old. He's from the LA area. He is an analyst for some sort of college out there. I can't quite remember at the moment.
I don't think he name dropped it in the interview.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He did just say I'm at a college. I think his exact phrase was at a college.
Yes, yeah. He hasn't played a ton of games, but he has won a game before. He's done relatively well, but he oftentimes does get lumped into the villain side of things. And I think the thing with Josh is I actually really like Josh. I saw him in 2 different games that he's played before, and honestly, I was actually rooting for him because he seems like he knows what he needs to do. He seems like he's a good player, but I think with Josh, and it could potentially be his downside or his, the downfall of his game in Prometheus possibly, is that he has a way of the way that he talks. If you're not used to people like Josh, it could come off like he's maybe being rude or possibly.
Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it.
It's really hard to say because I do like Josh and I have friends that are like Josh, but I'll just leave it at that. I think it could potentially rub people the wrong way is what I'm saying, but I do think Josh could potentially make it very far and could even potentially pull off some really good moves, but he is often lumped into the villain category.
So with Josh, this is one of 2 people that when I was watching their interviews, I'm like, wow, Casey really wants villains this season. So with Josh, yes, I that's why I started nodding when you started talking. Like, I know exactly what you're saying. As I'm watching, I'm like, wow, I don't know if this is an insult because the person won Survivor. So like, he almost gave off like Brian Heidick vibes of just like, this is a business trip. I'm here to, handle my business, not really here to, buddy up with people. I'm just here, do my thing and bounce. And he even said, like, I'm not a big fan of group chats in both life and in game. And, he just focuses on what he needs to do to get to the end, which, I'll touch on this in a second. And a game like Prometheus, it's very easy to do that to a certain point unless you get sussed out. And I think the good thing about him is, if people do get that vibe of, wow, he's very stoic and very cool, calm, calculated, people are going to be focusing on all this actual social threats because without any type of idols or any type of advantages, that's what people are going to really try to target people at. And he mentions during his interview that he is a fan. He's, if I'm not mistaken, he's a fan of idols and all of that. Like he prefers those, right? Unless I'm crazy.
I think so. I mean, I got to be honest. It's been weeks since I've actually done his interview.
Well, but Josh, I apologize if I got that one wrong. But
I do believe you're right, though. I think he does like those things because I think he can. I feel like he might have said something like he can navigate that kind of chaotic nature. Me personally, yes, I don't like idols and advantages.
Me either, and that's why I think that if there were idols and advantages in this game, I feel like he could potentially be a target for people because he will potentially have one. But in a social game where it's only social strategic with no type of advantage, people are going to be looking to get rid of social threats. And if Josh is talking to them in a way that people are like, oh, he kind of turns me off, but like, oh, we'll take him to the end because there's no way he can win, right? But as we've seen, he has won a game before. So that was something that I was trying to preach in our season of Prometheus of you should never think that if I go to the end with someone that I have this thing locked down because you don't know how the jury is going to vote. So I definitely see Josh as that type of person where people just feel like, oh yeah, like people are not going to like the way he talked to us and blah blah blah. Like I said, I have friends like Josh that talk like Josh, and they're some of my best. Which is kind of like saying, "Oh yes, I have black friends." So, so yeah, I really enjoyed his interview because it felt very out of all 4 interviews that I watched, his felt the most like a job interview. Like he just sat there, answered your questions. He was very straight to the point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that more or less covers it for Josh, though. Let's move on to our next person. I think this person is in my opinion, the top 3 to look out for in this game. It is Louise, 23 years old. She is a baker from the UK. She considers herself to be a jack of all trades. This is when she was talking about her personal life. I'm going to say it right now. Louise, I give her grade A, certified fresh, the Casey stamp of approval. I have played with Louise before. I have watched her play other stuff. I think Louise will probably run very far in this game. You cannot underestimate her. She, in the more recent months or even year, has become very much a competition threat. She is very smart. She's entertaining. Louise herself is just so easy to talk to. I mean, I had her interview scheduled. We scheduled them in half-hour blocks, and I think the interview itself was about 19 minutes. Louise and I, after the interview, talked with the inclusion of the interview. I'm just going to say that we talked, I believe, for a total of 4.5 hours.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
I can believe that.
Yeah. She's just great. I think people are going to just get in a fast-paced game like this. People are going to get so caught up in her social game and how fun she is and how funny she is that they're going to love her. They're going to be smitten with her and just want to work with her. And I think it'll be hard for pretty much anyone to get rid of her. But I could be wrong. I think she's going to make it far, and I think she is one of the people that you really have to look out for in this season.
Yeah, this is another person on the wow, Casey really wants villains list. But of the 4, Luis was by far my favorite. My favorite to just watch you two interact with each other, and you guys aren't even playing in a game. It was just I loved just listening to the banter that you guys had, specifically her talking about her entire org experience, the fact that she considers herself a villain or is perceived as a villain, the fact that she says, oh, I don't care if it's 4th or 15th or whatever, a loss is a loss, I'm trying to win, anything less than that, a failure. And I love that mentality. You know, that's the type of mentality that I feel like a lot of people should have in these games. And I think me personally, can I say I'm gonna make her my winner pick. Like,
Okay.
or unless there's like some type of craziness at 4 again, I feel like she has a really good chance of getting there, and I can't wait to watch this later. And she's like first boot, and I'm like, wow, what a moron. I picked Abraham to win Survivor 41 for everyone out there. Yeah. But yes, I loved. I would watch it with my roommate, and of the 4, she also said, Coach, I really like this person. And I said, yeah, I think I do too. Just on the human level, I just love, and it might have been the accent, but you know, it might not have been. Yeah, I love Louise. I cannot wait to see her play.
Yeah, and I'll just like end it with this. I mean, I sent her the Zoom link for her interview. She comes in and she comes in with this leopard print shirt, this hat, and then a pizza
Pizza
background.
background.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I love it all. It's absolutely great. It was one of the highlights of my day, and I do the second of where you record a second of your day and you make it into one long video. Her interview had to be in my second of the day. I was like, this was the highlight of my day. But Louise, I think she really will be a big contender to look out for in this season. So we're going to move on to our next person. And final person for Andrew's contestants, we have Mark. Mark is 39 years old. He is also from the UK. He's an assistant principal. I've had the pleasure of playing with Mark and being on production for another game. And also, I'm currently playing with him in a game right now. By the time this podcast airs, the game will be over. Mark is very interesting. Pretty much every single game he has ever played, he has made the top six. He's got a great social game. He is a very smart player, but he is very emotional. And I think oftentimes what ends up happening is, at least from my perception of things, is that Mark's emotions really take over. It gets to the point where he becomes paranoid, and his paranoia causes him to be aggressive. That could potentially rub people the wrong way. Um, there actually was a game that he just played in recently. I won't say it just in case someone is currently watching it because it's also a web series, but that might be the first time where he's played a more disastrous game, I'll say. But on that note, Mark is also just like another one of my favorites. Not in the top three to look out for, but someone who I think will play a very entertaining game.
Yeah, I'm a broken record at this point, but I really enjoyed listening to Mark. Once again, it could have been the accent, but maybe it wasn't. Especially as an emotional player, I definitely relate to that aspect of his game. But he takes it better because, like you said, in virtually every game that he's played in, he's made top six, which I just make merge. So the fact that he's able to take that and get it into a point, and he also says he's never won. So I'm hoping that, playing in a shortened game like this, he can use what he's learned in these long form games, get himself to a final 6-7 situation, and then close out the deal this time. And I think that because he is a relatively, from what he said, I don't know, I've never watched him play, relatively good social player. I think in Prometheus, if he can just be everyone's friend, but not their best friend, and kind of just always have his ear out for everything going on, I think that he has the potential to play, maybe not exactly like this person, but I think he can play like a Kyle type game where he may not, he might not be looked at as like the person that's, in the know about everything, but like Kyle knew a lot of what was going on. Some of the things, this I've just recently finished rewatching Prometheus, so like it's all still fresh in my head. But I think he could play a Kyle type game, and I think that if he sits at the end with the right people, he can do what Kyle couldn't do and pull out a win. And I hate saying it like this because I don't want it to seem like I have a bias, but the accent does get people places in these games. Trust me. I think that's Joe in our season never did anything that I ever felt like was overly social or strategic. He was just a good social strategic player. But I think the reason I kept saying, oh yeah, Joe's this, Joe's that, is because it's like, oh man, people are gonna like him because he has a nice accent. And he just so happened to be Joey Amazing as well. So I think that is, I like Mark, and I honestly hope that he does really well.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said before, I wish all the players the best of luck, but I do wish Mark the best of luck as well. I will conclude it with this, unless you have something else you would like to say about Mark. Um, in the games that I have played and watched of Mark, because of his paranoia, his emotional plays, and while also his emotional plays do make logical sense too, for some reason, every time, and I think it could be the aggressive part of all these things lead to him playing aggressive or being aggressive in getting these plans made. People get really upset when they get voted out, and they get upset at Mark. And almost every time they call out Mark. And to an extent, it works for him and it works against him. It works for him because then people want to bring him farther, but then it works against him because then if he does make it far enough, people might not want to vote for him. So I personally think with Mark, minis are actually probably the best for him because it shouldn't allow him to become overly emotional. Whereas in a long form game, all you have is time to stew with your thoughts and emotions. So I think that if Mark can refine his games a little bit, a mini might actually be best suited for him and even give him his first win.
Yeah. And I can't say that I hope so because I've already picked my winner of this group. I guess I should have said that of this group because I don't know the other cast members to this point. Of this group, I've picked my winner, but I'm hoping that all of them do well. Like I said, I only have their interviews to go based off of. I've never seen any of them play, but I think that all four of them have different enough games where any one of them could, impact the game enough to swing enough votes in their favor to pull this thing out.
Yep, I completely agree with you. But on that note, thank you, Andrew, for tuning or for coming on, not tuning in, for coming on. I really appreciate that. And thank you for everyone listening. We're going to bring in our next host in just a moment. All right. And we are now here with our second co-host to talk about the final four players of season 2 of Prometheus. We have season 1 alumni, Tiki. Tiki, how are you today?
Casey, I'm hyped up. Do you know why I'm hyped up?
Why are you hyped up, Tiki?
Because I've got 2 triple shots! 2 triple shots! All right.
Number one meme of the season, pretty much.
I'm holding on to that meme, man. It's like that is my thing for Prometheus. I am going to keep bringing it up. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not even I'm just like, hey, 2 triple shots as a prop. All right. Anyways.
Hey, you got him on standby. So really quick, before we jump into the final four contestants, I just wanted to say for anyone not familiar, yes, Tiki was season 1 alumni. In addition to that, Tiki does have his own YouTube channel, which we'll be plugging at the very end of this podcast. So you should definitely go check it out and subscribe to it. So we will be taking the last 4 players in alphabetical order. So we're going to start off with Maddie. Maddie is 23 years old. He is a singer-songwriter from the Philippines, very much an artist, very much outgoing, very much creative. I think, when you watch Maddie's interview and, see Maddie play, you're going to very quickly pick up on who he is and his personality. But Tiki, I'm very curious. What did you think of Maddie's interview?
For some reason, I kind of missed the fact that he was a singer-songwriter. I actually really like that as a profession. That's super unique. I've got to say with Maddie, this guy has just a ton of enthusiasm for the game. Absolutely. Like, he is a ball of energy.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I do kind of worry about, with him being so energetic, so willing to go to everyone. I don't know. I think he could either paint a target on his back quickly just because he's so outgoing. And I think that could lead to this guy's clearly running the show. If he's smart, I think he can socialize and get in good with people, but not necessarily make it look like he's running the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the concerns too would be that, it was not an issue for season 1. Granted, we only had 1 international player, but this time we have a couple different international players. And for the most part, Maddie speaks English very well. there could potentially just be like a
My
cultural
worry with that
difference.
is not necessarily how well he speaks English, because I think he's got the English down totally fine. My worry with that is when you're in a group setting over Zoom and there's voices talking over each other, he doesn't necessarily have that commanding of a voice to begin with. I do kind of worry that just with that, with the English being the second language thing, I kind of worry that he might get a little bit lost in the shuffle within the big group conversations. But then again, I don't know all the members of his tribe or anything, but he seems like he could have the potential to be one of the more outgoing people on his tribe. So that might balance things out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Now with Maddie, in terms of the international thing, I was more speaking like in a cultural thing too, because some cultures are vastly different, but Maddie seems to be pretty well, at least from what I can tell, pretty well plugged into American culture. And also with the singer-songwriter thing, I just wanted to touch upon that too. I believe he is like a legitimate singer-songwriter in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's really cool.
His following, I don't know if it's a large following or
What if we
not.
saw him like serenading the camp with a song or something? That'd be some great
Oh,
camp.
yeah. I mean, from my experience of going to a liberal arts college where you had a lot of singers and dancers, people who can sing love to sing. So I'm sure, we would get some sort of song at least at one point, over the course of the show.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the Maddie song. That's one thing I keep my eye out in the edit. When's Maddie gonna sing?
But Maddie's a very interesting one. He also mentioned a lot how he he kind of plays the flirt card, especially I believe his words were, if he sees a cute boy, he can't help himself, which also just was like, he can't help himself sometimes from talking. So he could potentially be overly social, which granted it is a social game, but being overly social is a thing.
It can be a problem for sure.
Absolutely.
I feel like I was under social. I think that's what bit me in the butt. But yeah, he could very well have the opposite problem, where it's like if he's literally got his hands in like 6 of the 8 tribe mates, and it's like they start comparing notes. It's like, wait a minute, I thought I was this guy's number one.
Absolutely. And hopefully, with any of the players, they don't overextend themselves that much right in the beginning of the game. But also another little interesting note, I guess, kind of comparison is, I believe, as you said during season 1, you need the face-to-face over the messenger stuff. Maddie also said that he likes the face-to-face as well. That's what he needs. And he hasn't played it.
Know what you guys are planning on as far as like switching up the format. But yeah, I could absolutely say, like, even if you watch my season, like the brief times that I was like really gelling with my tribe mates was all the camp life stuff. Like the strategy stuff, I was completely out on the loop on, just because frankly, I didn't think that the strategy would get so cutthroat so quickly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this game very much is kind of very fast paced.
Oh, yeah. And I was not expecting it to be that fast paced, where it's like, okay, if I'm not messaging people right away, I'm pretty much automatically out just by default.
Yeah. But yeah, we do have a couple switches and change ups to this season, but we'll leave that for when the episodes finally air. But do you have any final notes on Maddie before we move on to our next player?
No, I think he's super enthusiastic. I hope he doesn't have any technical issues like mic lag or anything like that, being as though he's from a foreign country. I hope that doesn't bite him in the butt at all. I think for Joe, it was totally fine last season. So
yeah. Absolutely. All right. So now we're going to move on to our next player. We have Michael. Michael is 25 years old. He's an accountant from Seattle, Washington. He loves movies. He's active. He definitely seems like he's very much an outgoing person based on all of his personal interests that he listed. He also came highly recommended by Kyle from season 1.
Yes.
And Michael was actually one of our senior members of production when we were doing the casting process.
Okay.
My brother, Michael, wanted him to be his shoe-in pick for this season. My brother really, I guess, connected with him on some sort of level.
Got my same name, man. We got to have him.
Hey, that might be what it is. But with Michael, I really liked Michael. I almost couldn't tell if Michael was giving me very much a GameBot feel or very much he's a really good player. And because of that and how cutthroat he is, drama ensues. So I couldn't tell which side of the coin he was on in terms of that. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Michael?
What I like about Michael is exactly what you just said, actually, is that he seems to be a very savvy player. He seems to know all, like he seems to have all his ducks in a row as far as what he knows about the game, what he plans to do. But he also isn't just a game bot, because he's talking about the movies, he's joking around. And I have a feeling that he's probably going to play a similar game to like the game that I wanted to play last time around, where it's like, I didn't want to be outwardly strategic. I more so wanted to form bonds based on similar interests, stuff like that. That's why I was looking at people like Kyle, that we kind of had this whole conversation where literally I just ended up on the wrong tribe, where I feel like it would have gelled way more with pretty much everyone else on that other tribe. But coming highly recommended from Kyle. I mean, as you know, Kyle was pretty much my favorite cast member from last season. I'm not going to lie. Definitely the fact that he's a California native, the one other West Coast person, that definitely helped with the rooting interest for him. But I also just think the kid was really sneaky and really funny, and he never took anything too personally. So, coming at it, like if we get another Kyle out of this equation with this guy, I think I'm pretty optimistic about it.
Yeah, and with Michael's played a number of these orgs. He's won on a few occasions, and one of his most recent wins, he actually beat Kyle in the final two.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talks about that, and
Poor Kyle, he always gets second place.
but yeah, in this instance, when he was talking about that, he very much was kind of playful about his win and him beating Kyle. But yeah, Michael, it's very hard to tell how he's going to be. He could potentially fly under the radar. He could be a game bot. He could potentially become this crazy front runner that, ends up being such a big target that it could potentially take him to the end, or that he ends up just getting taken out.
He could potentially make the same mistakes I made and focus more on individual bonds in the camp life and not realize that the strategy is so fast.
Well, I think the thing is that, and it's nothing against you or anything, but I think Michael, of a lot of the applicants that we have for this season, he definitely seems to be a lot more in tune with these orgs. I think he could potentially be a very fluid player in that regard.
Okay.
He did mention, which I think kind of in a sense goes with the active side of him from his personal life, that, the physical challenges might be his highlight, whereas the puzzles might be, I believe he said, his weakness. And he also said that he sees himself, and for a little bit of cluing into the audience listening to this, one of the interview questions we asked them is, what kind of player would they be? The player type? Are they social, strategic? Are they a competition person, an entertainer, or like a drama queen or king? And he said that he, sees himself as all five. He's one of the few that actually said he sees himself as all five.
I'm not going to lie. That's a little bit cocky. Not going to lie.
A little bit. But I think, despite maybe a moment here or there of cockiness, I don't actually see any sort of, dominant cocky trait.
No, he didn't seem like a dominant, like cocky person just in general. Just that one answer is a little bit presumptuous, I think.
Possibly. But yeah, do you have any other thoughts on Michael?
No, not really. I think he pretty much he could potentially kind of be that everyman type of character that becomes really rootable, much like Kyle, just because I could see him playing the game, but not taking it as seriously as some of the other people, and kind of getting some fan favorite vibes just based on that. Those are honestly some of my favorite types of players, is people who, they are skilled at the game, but they don't just look at the game through the game bot lens exclusively. They look at it through personal relationships and stuff like that. So I think he could have what it takes. We'll have to see.
All right. And also one last note for Michael. Michael did mention that oftentimes, aside from the few games that he's won, he often does come in second a lot. And it's mainly because he tends to piss off the jury. So we'll leave it on that note.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, we are moving on to Tasha. Tasha is 32 years old. She's a bartender slash restaurant manager, and she's from Wyoming. I don't think I've ever met anyone from Wyoming before, but you could very much tell that Tasha, oh my lord, Tasha, and this also factors into the bartender side. She is very social, and she
She's a
seemed
very dynamic personality from the minute she starts talking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She's kind of, you get like this wide range of stuff with Tasha. She's very social. She can be very emotional. She talked about on a number of occasions, how emotional she's gotten during these games, whether it was she, started crying at her vote out or crying at something that happened in the game, or even at one point telling another player's mom that player was a piece of shit.
I love that story. I love that story. And I love that the mom now sends her Christmas cards.
I know it's weird, which I guess, despite her, emotional state that she would even message someone's mom,
So,
her social skills must be good.
I am very much an emotional player myself. Like I came into season 1. That was one of the things I wanted to change about myself. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances of my vote, yeah, kind of didn't happen. But I absolutely respect someone who goes into the game and isn't trying to hide that about themselves. It's like, yeah, I wear my emotions on my sleeves. I am going to get a little bit intense in these games, and you're just going to have to kind of deal with that. And honestly, like for someone like me, I'd be more drawn to work with a person like that just because I can relate to them on that level. And so I don't know. I honestly think her intensity could go either way. I honestly think it could go the way that some people might expect, where it's like she just rubs people the wrong way, is off relatively early on. On the other hand, I could see her kind of having a take charge attitude and people sort of just falling in line with her because her personality is so big and is so, she's very much got some leadership quality to her.
Absolutely. But with that, it's always that
I can see she reminds me of Lauren more than anyone else in the old cast, I think.
Interesting.
Just in the sense that they both kind of have that like outspokenness to them. They both seem pretty physical.
Yeah, I mean, I believe she also even said physical is her strength. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely potentially see that. If anything, I see Tasha as a more extreme version of Lauren.
A more extreme version of Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, love Lauren. But yeah, but with Tasha, I mean, I think she very much is like kind of what you see, what you get. She mentioned on a number of occasions that, while she's playing these games, she loves drinking wine. So that could potentially factor into
definitely lead to entertainment, for sure.
And it could potentially have factored into why she's been so emotional. When you're wine drunk or just drunk in general, and you're playing a game, that can potentially bring up these intense emotions.
Try playing Monopoly drunk, for fuck's sake,
I've never done that, and I don't think I ever will.
Oh man. Oh, it is I've definitely played Mario Party drunk. That's an experience.
But yeah, with Tasha though too, she also said that for her player type, she's a mix between social, drama queen, and entertainer. And I think in a sense,
those are really good qualities.
Oh, absolutely. And drama queen and entertainer do go hand in hand, but also the, entertainer side was kind of more of like you could be entertaining to your group or your audience.
Around, and obviously the social thing is going to be the big component to people wanting to keep you around. So, I mean, if you can keep the explosiveness in check, or at least target it towards the right people while keeping the people that you want to work with happy, I don't know. I do think out of the 3 that we've talked about, she's probably going to have the hardest time just based on how emotional she is. But I also think she's easily the most dynamic character. And of course, you and me, like, we're part of Survivor Storytellers, just a quick plug. And I would say if we were just doing Survivor Storytellers, she would definitely be the one on our radar of like, okay, like I want to see where this story goes. Like, I am latched onto this character. So
yeah, absolutely. And she is, despite I think the explosiveness, the emotional, the drama state kind of becoming a very prominent, talking point for us and a prominent feature. She is a very smart player. She has,
Am I the only
made
one
it
who's
very
getting
far.
like Survivor 42 Tory vibes from her a little bit?
I could see that, but I won't say too much in regards to
Okay.
Tori.
Okay.
But yeah, I could potentially see that. So Tasha should potentially be one to look out for pretty early on, if I had to guess.
Uh-huh. All
So
right.
we are now going to run it to our last player of season 2 of Prometheus. We have Tracy. Tracy is 51 years old. She is in the hospitality business, has been in that business for a very long time, and she also does a lot of shuttle driving, for her hotel. She is based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we got another Pittsburgh player, from like what we had from season 1. Right now, she has never played anything like this before. She is the oldest cast member we have ever casted. And honestly, I'll be straight up. Tracy is the only recruit for this season. We kind of technically had like a couple recruits for last season. So, there was no interview video for Tiki to watch. But her pretty much, she is, I know her personally. She's very likable. She's very social. She's not a stranger to technology. But you said, even though you only saw, a snippet of her and not like a full length interview, like you saw a lot of
love
notes.
what I saw of her. Just what I saw of her, I saw a lot of potential. I think her career, the hospitality thing, that is going to get her far if she hones it right. Because I tell you, man, I do a lot of traveling, and I've had, and it's like if you're just getting out of the airport, you're flustered, you're confused, you might even be a little bit pissed off because you've been literally in a metal tube with a bunch of other annoying people for the past however many hours. And it's literally the job of the shuttle driver to ease you into that vacation, to ease you in and be like, here you are, and I'm going to drive you to your hotel and everything's going to be okay. That's a skill, Casey. That is a skill. All right. And if she's good with technology, because I think for her age, that's definitely going to be the hurdle she's going to have to overcome, as we kind of saw with Mara last season. If she's good with technology, and if the other players don't just automatically pull the BS like, oh, she's the older lady, so we have to get her out, which could happen. I think if she gets in and she starts to, actually get in with some people, I think she could go a long way, man. This is just based on the profession. I honestly think this profession might be up there with like bartender or something like that, is like one of the more social jobs that really just kind of it's not a job that you would think about with Survivor, but like I said, you're dealing with millions of personalities. You're dealing with people from all around the world, probably people that don't even speak your language a lot of the time coming into the airport. I mean, and she said she's a shuttle driver extraordinaire. And I don't know, just something about the shuttle driver thing and working in the hospitality industry. Survivor is literally a game all about making people comfortable with you. That's a big part of it, is just making people want to work with you, making people feel like you're going to be valuable to their game. And I think as a hospitality worker, I honestly think she has a leg up on a lot of the other people, especially because she's been in that industry for so long.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I love your enthusiasm for Tracy. But that is exactly right, especially being in the hospitality industry and a shuttle driver. As you said, you meet a million different personalities, potentially even from around the world. So
challenging personalities who might not have been having the best day before they meet you.
Absolutely. So I think, with more international players this season, Tracy might be used to this wide range of people. So we'll just have to see how she, factors into all of this. But you're exactly right. Oftentimes in the beginning of these games, people are like, she's the older player. We just gotta.
I'm worried about the older player stigma. I am also worried about if she's going to be able to keep up on a game level, kind of like in the same way that I was like, I could see her kind of pulling the same mistake that I made. And, and again, I don't know how you're dividing the camp life and tribe life this season or this strategy stuff, But like, I could see her falling into the trap of like, okay, like I'm going to spend all the time in the camp. I'm going to get to know all these people, formulate these bonds. And, you know, in my one or two episodes that I was in, that was my goal. That, you know, every time you saw me in camp life, I was doing the never would I ever game, or, you know, I was trying to relate to other people, trying to form, you know, kind of social connections, or like, oh, you like this? I like this, you know, that kind of stuff. And that stuff is valuable. But as I learned, I really hope she has the killer instinct to form the alliances needed alongside of it.
Yeah, absolutely. My final note for Tracy is that she, you know, doesn't watch these reality competitions. So yes, she might have that uphill battle in addition to her age as well. But so she's very much going in blind, but let's just see if, you know, her social skills and, you know, her job in hospitality can potentially help her win out long enough to figure out the game. But do you have any final notes before we conclude with Tracy and the podcast for today?
Yeah, I would say my winner pick here between the four of them might be Michael. I think Michael probably has the most level head on his shoulders. I think he's the least threatening, but while still being a very good player in a lot of different avenues, he feels very well rounded. I will say easily the fan favorite character for me, the character that I'm very much looking the most forward to seeing on screen and rooting for, is definitely Tracy.
All right. Well, you heard it here.
Not to poo-poo the other two as well. I think you have a really solid group of four here. I can't wait to see the rest of the cast.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone, you know, I told you this a little bit before you did the podcast. Everyone kind of like had a little bit of a winner pick and people they were looking out for. But all right. On that note, Tiki, do you have any final thoughts, any plugs or anything before we do the outro?
Yeah, folks, go to So You Want to Be an Imagineer on YouTube. It's very simple. You either type So You Want to Be an Imagineer on YouTube, and we should come up right up. We're the channel with the droopy dog avatar. Or if you want to just Google So You Want to Be an Imagineer YouTube, we should pop right up too. I believe the URL is literally just youtube.com/So You Want to Be an Imagineer. And folks, we are digging deep into all kinds of different pop culture. We are a Disney podcast first and foremost, but we do a bunch of different pop culture. Anytime a big superhero movie or anything like that comes out, we'll cover it. We do a lot of theme park coverage. We do some games. We have a monthly debate show. That's a lot of fun. Have you ever been in that, Casey?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, man, we need to get you hooked up in that. You'd be a great for that. So, yeah, we basically try and cover a big, broad amount of topics within the pop culture / geek culture landscape. So yeah, we do a lot of anniversaries, that kind of stuff. I'm kind of rambling on. If you're a fan of animation, theme parks, geek culture, I would recommend my channel. I honestly think we have a really good, strong group of contributors, including yours truly.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for Tiki for coming on the Cast Assessment Podcast.
Of course.
And on that note, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Casey Needs a Co-host. And we'll see you for the next podcast. Bye.
2 triple shots!